Oh, it's actually picking my keyboard, yeah. How come Discord doesn't pick up that I'm streaming right now? There we go. Just takes a minute. Right, let me check if my everything is right. Yeah, phone. Studio mode, so you can look at my overlay. Seems alright. Hello, Estabrons. Welcome. Not there, but maybe soon. Alright. Tech. Oh, actually, this. So, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing them because there's not much available recorded material, and the tutorials are usually very specific, and they like cover tutorials are going to cover one topic and one topic super well for decoding stuff. And I imagine it would be valuable if I did stuff end to end, as they say. So start from the idea and get it all the way done until it's running as a mod in your game. And today I'm going to try and do that for one little thing. Oh, where's the volume of stuff? I think I can bring... No, I'll leave the music be. Actually, I'll bring the music up, but I'll lower it in the app. So I don't hear it as much either. But yeah, we're probably good to start. Alright, so last week, the week before that, some time ago, we did a code overview tutorial where I go through everything that is in the game. Everything, quote unquote, right? Like the general topics. Rain word, main loops, rain word game, word loading, the abstract stuff, the non-abstract stuff, and then the room camera, sprite loader, eye drawables, etc. So today, is this too loud still? No, it's pretty quiet for you, but it's too loud for me. Today I'll be going over a little bit more in depth on what is the room, what code runs in the room, what are updatables and deletables, and what are iDrawables and the very basics of the drawing stack of this game. Alright, so that out of the way, let me start with a rough sketch of what the hell I want to do. Right, I am a big fan of drawing and sketching and doing concept art. Not that great of an artist myself, but I try. Sometimes I manage even. Right, I need my tablet here. If you don't draw, it's fine if you write. If you don't draw nor write, maybe think really hard about it, you're probably screwed. That was my tablet, sorry. Pen. There's a pen, and there is pressure also. Short story short, we need more ways to kill Slugcat. Slugcat doesn't die enough in the video game. So I was looking at GTFO stuff the other day, and the turrets in that game are pretty cool, and they make funny sounds. And then I imagine that we could have something like that in Rainworld. Just like a box on a pedestal with a barrel on the top. The barrel is a gun. And then... oh shoot, yeah, okay, I didn't do my homework right. I should have created a new layer for this. And then we go here, we do a little bit of zooming, and we draw. But yeah, box on a pedestal. Barrel on top. Maybe connected somehow. And then the barrel shoots, like pew pew. A big thick bullet. Right, and the turret itself, no, that's why I wanted to move it. The turret itself does a bit of a visual effect for when it's trying to track something or not tracking something properly. So maybe there's like scan lines that go back and forth. Hello, username. Modding new rooms. We will be doing a room object. It's gonna be a turret that shoots Slugcat because Slugcat needs more ways to die. Right? And then when you find something, those scan lines all converge into a single point, and maybe there's a menacing red line, because everyone knows that when there's a red line pointing to their head, they're about to get shot. They're about to get shot. Oh my goodness. Goodness, English is weird. So yeah, so we're gonna need the graphics. All right. Wait a second. So that was the concept art. It's all you need for concept. It's just rough idea, and a clear idea in your mind helps too. And now we want to break this down on what the actual parts are. So I think I want this to be able to pivot on this point. So it's gonna be two graphics at the very least. One graphic for the base, one graphic for the turret. Might also warrant a graphic for the bullet. We might get away with just using what's in the game for this, but probably warrants its own graphic. Nah, just reuse. Don't over scope. We need to figure out how to do the scan lines. Now, those are just lines. Doesn't make much sense to have them as assets. There can be just a mesh with a funny shader. Right? Then we need a way to place them. Place them. We need a way to scan the room. Scan for Skug. And we need a way to shoot, pretty much. Right. It's better if you write down in fine detail what each one of these is, so I'm gonna do that. I was gonna say you do it as homework, but no, I'm gonna do it. You can't stop me. Alright, so we want to have it get out of the way. We want to place them. Alright, so what do I understand for placing them? I will need the turrets to appear. I need turrets to appear when the room appears, or when the room is loaded. Right? In the place that I specified. So I don't want this to be random. I want this to be placed in the place that I specified. Now, okay, it looks very silly to write this out loud like this, and at some point you won't be doing this anymore, but do it the first time around. It's a good exercise. Write it down in fine detail, fill all the gaps. Don't leave anything for imagination or having to remember the details later, because you forget the details sometimes. Right? So we need to place these turrets. Actually, placing them is a bit more complicated. Placing them involves picking a base point, base, and picking direction. Picking a direction. We'll get there. Imagine choosing where it's placed and which way it's facing to be able to control this. Okay, we place them. Assume they are somewhere and they're pointing somewhere. We need them to scan for Slugcat. Scan for Slugcat. What the hell do you mean for scan for Slugcat? So I want a turret to... I want a turret to... raycast or do collide on its scan lines. Maybe test for line of sight. So I want the scan lines to be like actual things you can contact with, because we're just programming, it doesn't matter, it won't have physics, but it works as a trigger. So you touch the scan line, you're detected. Maybe, if you have line of sight to that. We can refine this later as we get to the meat of it, but the idea is written out. We won't forget that that is an important detail. Next, I want this. Okay, we're just scanning. If scanned, track. Now, here I'm saying something that makes me realize that I have a gap. I want these lines to be moving. I want scan lines moving up and down a certain range. And then when I hit something, when I find something, we track it. So when tracking, scan lines follow it. While tracking, lines go red. If tracked for long enough, shoot. Right, it's almost looking like pseudocode here, but it's really good that you stop and write this down at some point. Whether it's in the ideas folder, document, file that you have, or just a quick note somewhere, or it's actually in your project and you're writing the pseudocode that you're gonna fill out some time later. It's good that you write stuff like this down. Alright, if tracked for long enough, shoot. This leads perfectly into shooting. So, if Slugcat, or if creature, another gap. We're not just gonna make it work against Lugcat, we're gonna make it work against anything maybe. Scan for Lugcat, creature maybe. If creature tracked for too long, shoot, right? Shooting. Shooting sounds a high speed bullet. Bullet on collision does damage. Bullet on miss. Makes SFX sound effect. Could have like a sniper miss shot, like a bullet whizzing by sound effect, and it would be super cool. I would leave some question marks here, like it's an extra, we might have it in there. What else is important? On hit terrain. Sparks. Right? A lot of sparks if the bullet hits the terrain instead of hitting a Slugcat or a creature. Do we want blood? I don't think I want blood in this video game. Nah, it's fine without it. Right, so we go through this one at a time? Question mark. We also mentioned the graphics that we need, right? So we need graphics for base. We need graphics for body of the turret. We might need bullet. We need quote unquote. I know we won't need to do it, but I'll just write it here. Need bullet. Bullet trace. Scan lines. Sparks. All of these are things you could think of as graphics too. What I'm thinking here is quote unquote need. We will find stuff for this inside of the game already, so we won't need to do it. Alright. Does this look like a plan to you? Looks like a plan to me. Let's get started. Could start by the graphics. Yeah. Okay, so let's get in more details in the graphics. I think the base and the body will be pretty similar, right? So they're just two parts that are disjoint, but they'll look pretty much the same. So right here, I know this game inside out a lot, and I think I know what I want to use for this. I want to have them follow the palette of the room, because that's something you can do with the shaders in this game. You can have something that is colored automatically for you using the palette. You do that the same way the shelter parts do. So the shelter door, bunch of moving parts, follows the room palette always, and they do that through a shader that is made for moving parts. So we're gonna use shader for moving room parts. Sounds complicated? It is a little. We'll get there. I know what I'm doing. I'm here to teach you. Then what else? We're gonna import these sprites into the game. Import sprites into the game and have an eye drawable on screen. Now, here you might be asking, how the hell do I know of this? I know all of this because I've done something similar already. If you don't know all of this getting into fine detail is what you fill in as you learn and understand some of the game code related to what you're trying to do. If you just drop in and think, oh, I want to load assets into the game, how the hell do I do that? Let's do that one time just for practice then. All right, let me think of a good example, one that would be easy to find. Above the cloud view. Above the cloud view, use a bunch of sprites in the room. So above clouds view. Hey, it's here. When the room is loaded, it creates. If it has the effect above the clouds view, it creates above clouds view room object, background scene, whatever you want to call it. And then load graphics, load graphics, load graphics, load graphics. Add element, ATC spire, ATC structure. Let's have a look at this real quick. Asset name, load graphics. Okay, we might want to check out what the hell is load graphics already, right? Futile, Atlas Manager, get Atlas with name. Futile is the graphics engine that this game uses. Atlases are sprite sheets. It's checking if it has already that available. If it does, it just cuts here. If it doesn't, then it does something else. It goes through loading a file in assets, futile, resources, illustration, element name.png. Alright, so if you placed your file there and you called load graphic with that name, it would load your graphic. It would load as a texture, and then it loads the image into texture, and it stores that texture, and it doesn't even return anything. So how do you reference that graphic later? We're checking this asset name thing, so you might want to check how it's actually used by the game. When it's read in initiate sprites or in update. Update, it's being logged for the name. Initiate sprites, it is being used to create an F sprite. So we loaded a graphic, it has a name, and we do an F sprite with that name, and it becomes our asset in the game. Magic. I'm going through this real quick. We will go in a bit more of a slow pace when we get to actually do it. And this is just to tell what's the investigation process for when you have to fill these gaps on your own. Because here I'm giving you all the details beforehand because I know all the details already. And that won't always be the case. I know there's a shader for moving parts. That's something I know. Maybe you don't, but let's get in more detail how this works, right? What do I know that uses this shader? I know that the shelter door uses it. So we go to code for shelter doors, we look at what the game did, and we do similarly. Room, shelter was wrong here. Shortcut, shader, shelter door. I like opening lots and lots of tabs on the Unspy. Shelter door, right? Let's look at what it does for initializing its sprites. Talking about initializing sprites. iDrawable, the interface for stuff that appears in a room camera. Room camera is the in-game camera. It manages stuff that goes on screen and off screen, in the room that you're looking at, off the room that you're looking at, and it has this little interface called here. Shelter door, so we'll be looking at something like initiate sprites or doll sprites for when it does stuff with its graphics. Initiate sprites, right here. So it creates, a shelter has 42 moving parts, what the hell? It creates 42 sprites. And what it does, it creates a bunch of moving parts repeatedly and anchors them and scales them and rotates them, but then boom, shader. It uses a shader called Color Sprite 2. So that's moderately important. We could look at what it does and try and figure out how it works, or we can look at what sort of images it's loading and try and guess a little. We'll do both. We'll both try and guess what it's doing from the files, and then we'll look at the code for the shader and try and understand it a little. Ringward modded assets. So the sprites are loaded on load, are loaded when the shelter needs them, I don't know. It's probably loaded on load. It's most definitely loaded on load. So at the start of the game, pretty much, roam from Ringward game, from process manager, from Ringward. At the start of Ringward, At some point in here, the game loads all the shaders, and the game loads a bunch of atlases. Atlases are sprite sheets. Load resources, load atlas. There's probably a shelter gate. Oh, shelter gate or shelter parts maybe. Shelter gate, region gate. Yeah, there was shelter gate and region gate in here being loaded, and they both use the shader. I imagine the gates also follow the room palette. Right, these are being loaded from Atlas's shelter gate. Hey, and there's Ila, welcome. Delete them. Alright, a futile resources, atlases. And there's a bunch of both single image and sprite sheet atlases here. We're looking for shelter gate. There's two versions of it, it's pretty funny. So I imagine this one, let's open it up and have a serious look at it. This one seems like it's colored. And then the next one is clearly encoded values as colors, right? We don't see this blue in game. We see it in the palette color, but right here it's blue and red and black. And there's some trickery going on. Vulture Mask for scale, yeah, that's a nice one, right? Vulture Mask for scale. Love it. I think this isn't even like the current version of the Vulture Mask. Someone might want to check this out. This might be like an earlier drawing of the Vulture Mask, because I don't remember the eye opening to the side like that. Dang it, alright. Close that, keep this open. So we're looking at this. Blue, red. Let me check if I do something here. Does this work for you guys? I hope this works. I can't tell because it freezes my screen, but I'm inspecting the colors. So we have values of red, values of blue, and not a smidge of green, unless it's like the actual gray background here. But it's all blue and red. Right, so this is clearly encoded values in the color channels. And I could try and guess what they do, because I know something like this already, but if we don't know what it does, then we look at what the shader does with these values. So we go back to futile resources, and we go to shaders, and we just say that it was color, or level color 2, colored sprite 2, color sprite 2. I'm gonna open Visual Studio so I get some syntax highlights. Right. It's gonna complain that stuff does not exist. And I don't know much about shaders to be able to explain everything at the start here. But it is a shader, yes. It takes one texture in, which is whatever it's drawing on screen. What else does it do? Bunch of stuff that I don't really know about, but there's gonna be a frag program that returns the color of the pixel, and this one is the important one. So this one, to understand this one, it's already gonna need understanding a little bit of the rendering pipeline for this game. Do I bother trying to go it super quick and leave it with a really poor explanation? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, super poor explanation of how Rainward renders things on screen. Alright, so we know for a fact that Rainward has a level. Rainward has normal things. Things. And Rainward has special things. Alright. Oversimplified? Yes, it's all you need to know for now though. Alright. How does Rainward draw this? So what does a normal game, a normal rendering engine do? It follows the Painter algorithm. What is the Painter algorithm? Painter algorithm is drawing... Oh my goodness, I choose the worst possible color. Painter algorithm is drawing what's far, far away. So there's a mountain. Then the next thing that is far, far away, there's a tree. Then the next thing there's far, far away, there's a barn. And it keeps drawing things on top of each other in their distance, in order by their distance. In front of the barn, there's a person, so they draw the person over the barn, and they forget what was under it because it's drawing on top of not on top. This is the Painter algorithm, and Rainward does not do this because on this algorithm, drawing shadows is a bit more complicated than it should be. So what Rainward does instead is Rainward draws the actors in the scene first. So say the actor is the person and the tree. A tree. And then, hello knights, welcome, welcome. And then Rainward draws the level on top of this, except on the pixels that are already drawn. If I were to do this by hand, it would be a lot of pain. But the idea is that Rainward draws everything around what's already drawn. So say we have to draw a mountain behind these guys. We draw around these guys. And then we're drawing the mountain after we drew the actors. But while we're drawing the mountain, we already know where the actors are on stage and we can cast shadows. So this is how Rainward casts shadows in the level, by drawing the level after the actors. Alright, this is... Oh my goodness, I'm stupid. I might have brain damage. There we go, that's a tree. Whew, scary. Right, so Rainward draws first the actors, then the level, and then the special thing. So say there is like a ribbon that has to go behind the tree, but in front of the person. Rainward draws this after all the actors are on stage, and then ignores the pixels that were already drawn to initially. And doing this by hand will be a pain, but when you're doing a shader, you can process this pixel by pixel. It's pretty slow, but it gets the work done, it gets the job done. Okay, we're looking at shelter parts, gate parts, parts that are special parts. And the shader that they use samples what was already drawn on screen. First it does some coordinate stuff to figure out where exactly it has to sample. It didn't have to do it this way, but it does this way. It's complicated. And then it samples its own color. Wait a second. Text color, depth. No. Colored sprite 2. So this is this main text. Okay, so there we go. There's the main text, there's level text, and there's the grab texture. These are the three textures that are going to play here. This song is too much. Hold up, let me switch almost. Much better. Alright. Actors go in the grab pass. There's a grab pass after the actors are drawn, so you can sample it. Then there is the level texture, that is the scenery, the level itself. And then we're talking about special things, like the shelter door, which is for the one which we're reading the shader for. And the special things have to take into account the level, the actors, and themselves. So let's have a look at how that happens. Main text is themselves. Level text is the level texture. Grab texture is the actors on stage after a grab pass, so you know which pixels are already drawn to. And how the shader works is it tests, it gets the color of itself and its own coordinates. It gets the color of the terrain, I suppose. So level texture is being sampled here. It gets the red color of the terrain, so X, and that encodes the depth. So if you've ever looked at letters, English. If you ever looked at a room render, they look like this. It's a bunch of white and red and several shades of red. And the white is the background, but the red encodes the depth of the level at this point, and whether it's shaded or not, and whether it's tone light, tone neutral, or tone shaded. But essentially, if you travel along a certain distance, you notice that the red changes as the depth of the picture changes. Right, enough of that. So the shader is getting the depth from the red channel of the level, but it's getting some other info from itself. So it's getting its own red as a depth value. So this object itself being drawn has a depth value. What else is it getting? X, Y, Z. So Y isn't used anywhere. Looking at this, and it doesn't use the green color anywhere. And then Z is being used here. Z is being used here. So Z is the blue color. And it's being used to sample the palette. So if we go back here, what did we learn? Red is the depth. Blue is the tone. Red is being used to calculate the depth. So text main texture, where's main texture? Main texture is here. Main texture becomes texture color. Texture color red becomes the depth. Texture color blue becomes the palette tone. And texture color opacity becomes the opacity of that object. So we can have semi-transparent objects here. That's interesting. It's pretty cool, actually. Okay, that out of the way. Now we know blue is the tone, red is the depth. And so you notice that the small details go into a red tone as they go deeper into the stage, I suppose. So like this corners are like bevels, and they go backwards a bit. So this thing has a thickness to it. That's only affecting which palette color it picks. It's not like it's gonna project or do perspective, but the palette color gives us a feeling of depth because of the way it's made and because of the level surrounding it. Right, so we know that if we want to use the shader, we have to produce an image with the same idea here. That's just for getting the graphics done, right? So we want to do the base and the body of the turret. What I'm working on right now, I want to make a turret. It pew pew shoots slug cat. So we did a sketch, rough concept, we did some like the general idea. We went into detail on some of those ideas. So for the graphics, we're going to need a base and a body. It uses the shader for moving parts in this game. We need quote unquote the bullet trace, scan lines part, but I think we might get away with what's in the game already. We need to be able to place these turrets, we need to have them scan for Slugcat, or maybe any creature, and we need them to shoot and kill Slugcat. Does damage. And kills. Right? Ideas document. Right, so let's get into actually making the sprites for this thing. I don't like repeating myself, so I'm just gonna copy this over to a new file, paste it, and then We're gonna place some of these in 5 pebbles in the shaft right before his chamber, right? So it has like a long corridor to shoot Slugcat. That'd be perfect. Let's do it. But first we have to do it. So let's try and do it real quick. Slugcat for scale, right? Let me bring up the rulers. View rulers. Slugcat is 40 pixels big. How much is 40 pixels in this grid? 40 pixels. Let me draw Slugcat real quick. So 20 pixels, 40 pixels, tail. I need it. Right. So this is Slugcat. Is this right? Seems right. Oh, Jesus. Alright, Slugcat for scale. Our gun is way too big, right? So let's move these guys a little bit to the corner here. And this guy has to scale the fuck down. Transform. Nope. What the? Control T? Yeah, there we go. I was hitting wrong. Keybind. Guess I want them to be the size. The size is perfect. This might be even too big. Perfect. Now we make this low opacity. It's just an art stream now, right? I know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Brush. I want this thing to be a box. Should probably use a box tool for this. But I'm too lazy to look what the shortcut is. Right, so a box. If I were to go crazy on the animations and how this thing shoots and how it goes back when it shoots, like have some momentum, inertia, movement to it, I'd have this be a separate part at the top, so I can displace it separately. But first, I'm lazy. Second, I need to finish this evening. I won't make this a 2-part tutorial. We're finishing this today. So just gonna make this look like this. And is this convincing? Not a whole lot, but that will have to do for now. Right, so we have the shape. This is the shape. Now I want this thing to have something in the red channel and something in the blue channel. Actually, let me look at something real quick in the shader code. How much the red stuff interferes? Oh, we can set its... Wait, what? Oh, If it's completely red, it's always gonna be at full depth. Interesting. So if something is fully red, it's gonna be a full depth. So I guess I don't really have like fine control over this, do I? It's not a certain number of steps or anything. So say I have this at depth like a third. I have this on layer 10. No, it should be on layer 5. So depth is gonna be depth. If it's going to be in layer 5 out of 30, that's a sixth of depth. Then the rest of this it can be divided on 255 values. It's complicated. So I have 25 possible values over 255. So each 10 red is a palette change step. So we can draw stuff up to 20 red. What I'm going to do here is create a group for this, and I'll be doing drawings on separate channels for this. So create a layer, I'll go over properties, and I'll have this be just red channel. And now I can draw stuff that has a red value to it. And I want a red value of 10. Or maybe 30. 30, 0, 0. And I'll have a low opacity of a third. And now, if I draw this value of red, that makes so that this part is further back. And that way I can create depth on this, otherwise pretty flat box. I'll be adding a little bit of detail too, here and there. It's hard to see, but it's just what the colors have to be for this to work. Not like this. Like this. All right, so that's our depth channel. Now we do something similar, but just for the blue channel. I want to draw just blue. There we go on, and we pick our color. Now blue is 3-tone encoded. So it's either black or mid blue or full blue. So I guess it makes even more sense if I do it like this. I'll go half range, full opacity, and let me think about something real quick. So if I do no blue, if text color Z is 0, then that's sampling the texture at coordinates. I always forget if it starts on the top left or at the bottom left. I think it's top left. Let me think about it real quick. Palette texture. Texture G. Half 2 of. Wait a second. So sampler to G, palette texture is sampler to G, and this is coordinates. This is X and Y. Y is going from half to 2.5. So it's starting at the bottom. And then Z. Yeah, so Okay, to visualize this, again, let's look at the game files, ringword modded, assets, futile resources, palettes. I think there's actually a palette key file here somewhere to show what the palette is about. So this is a palette. At the top we have the special colors, at the bottom we have the level colors, and we're looking at something that samples this palette from half a pixel here to, can actually not draw on this, looking at something that samples from this half pixel here to 1.5, 2.5 pixels, so it samples from here to here. And 0 is in here, and 255 is in here. So 255 is lit, bright tone, and 0 is darkened tone. So knowing that, now we paint this. I want to paint everything neutral first. Then I want to paint dark in some areas. So imagine these are dark. I imagine it's dark underneath. I imagine it's dark and on the little corners like this. I imagine these pipes connecting both are darkened, and that this pipe at the top is darkened on its lower half. It's tough to do a straight line with pixel precision brush. Right. And then I could add some finer detail on some of this stuff, so like just a pixel line here and here, and some details here and here that are gonna get mixed into other stuff. Right? Pattern like this works really well for technological stuff. And now we do the bright tone. So we did the neutral in the dark, now we just do brights. Let me do dark again here because I forgot. Now we do brights along the edges. Okay, now we do some details here too. And some details here. You probably do one of the lines preferably thicker than just one line, because these are pixels in game, it's gonna be tough to see what's going on. Right, but it's filled enough with detail. It's gonna look pretty fancy actually. That was just the superior, the upper platform though. Let me actually get here and draw some pixels again. There we go. Right, I think I'm happy with this. I'm never happy. I might be happy. Okay, now I'm happy. That's the other part. Again, if you don't do art, you better be able to write really well, because you're gonna need to explain to someone in fine detail what you want. And sometimes whoever is playing to isn't as creative as you are, so you better get it really, really into fine detail for stuff like this. This is gone. Gone. This is Scug for reference. Scug for reference. And now we're gonna do something else. This was just copy pasted gun there. Yeah. Let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of this other layer. Let me create a new layer into a group here, and we're gonna do the base. So again, the whole idea is, but just disconnected. It's back. It's back. The idea here is that we want something that pivots around a point. Now, when you have something that pivots, designing that joint that pivots can be important sometimes. I'm an animator guy. I know how joints should be done for stuff like this. So I'll start with something like a circle. No matter how you put something on top of the circle itself will still look mostly the same. So it's perfect for pivoting something around the circle, or like near its center maybe. And then from the circle, I'm just gonna have like a triangle. It's gonna be a really pixelated one. Maybe I'll use a line tool for this, so it's correctly pixelated. Yeah. And maybe I want like a reverse structure somewhere. This is passable. It isn't straight at all, but it's passable. Let me go back and do it straight. Straight line somewhere. So I'll just draw a temporary line here. And then we're gonna do... Oh goodness, math. I just need them to be visually very similar. Is this visually very similar? Yeah, sorta. Uh-huh. Black orb. It's a tripod for a gun. Gun goes on tripod. Did I mention something like this? Oh Christ, not again. Good. Good. Now we do like tiny feet. It doesn't matter at all that isn't symmetric. I hate it, but it doesn't matter. Resist the urge to fix it. Okay, now it has tiny feet. Now we just have to color it the same way we did for the structure. Now I think for this one I'm not gonna bother with the depth at all. It's just gonna be the shade. For the shade it is the blue channel, so we do a layer that is just a blue channel. And we start by painting everything mid-tone. Then we paint the shadows. Honestly, I don't know how to do the shadows on these thin lines. I might do everything shadow for the sake of consistency. Do I? Guess I can leave those lines as mid-tone. Yeah, let's try it like this. I leave everything that is facing left as a mid-tone, and I make everything else shaded. This will do alright. This will do alright. Maybe if I do slightly better on the feet here. Now let me just fix some pixels that are looking off. This being just a pixel there was off. What else is looking off? This extra pixel there. Ah, I see the issue. Now that's too thick though. Yeah, let's have it extra thick like this. Yeah, all right. This pixel looks off. But I see the issue. Let's paint it here. And get rid of that. Paint it here. And here, and get rid of that and that. All right. Weirdness is fixed. I think Scug is just Scugrat. Right, that was 2 graphics done. We might not need anything else graphics-wise. Base and body. Now we have to import them into the game. I'll take a bathroom break. I'll be back in 2. You guys behave, please. Ah, we're back. All right, so we've done the graphics. We know which shader we're using, which know our file format. We have to import the sprites into the game. We were looking at how the game does it, and that's one way to do it, right? So load Atlas from texture, and it takes a path, and it opens. Yeah, it's a turret. It's gonna be awesome. I could also be a camera. Like if we don't feel like being aggressive today, we could repurpose this to be like a camera, security camera, or maybe like an actual camera. Yeah, Game normally loads stuff from either atlases or illustrations. And the game is super duper annoying about loading atlases specifically. When you're loading an atlas, it tries and load atlas data, which it expects to find in a specific file. Where is it? Resources load text asset. Yeah. Essentially, the game expects to find stuff in a specific path inside of its built-in resources. So it's just a pain to do, to call this load atlases code. Sorry if I'm going too fast. So, Atlas sprite sheets. We need to load this as a sprite sheet in the game. How the game loads sprite sheets? It's in FAtlas Manager code, creating FAtlases. The game is particularly painful about loading atlases. For loading single image stuff, it's alright. But we want this to be loaded as a sprite sheet, 2 parts in one. We don't need this to be 2 separate sprite sheets. We want this to be a single one. The game is annoying about it. The shorthand would be load them separately. It has a single image mode, but for loading stuff in sprite mode, even with the custom assets mod, which makes this not load from the built-in, but instead of from the file system, even then it's a pain to do, because you have to put your assets inside of the game files. You have to go to assets, futile, resources, atlases, and then you put your atlases here, and then you need the code for loading it too. So I'm just gonna be a cheap ass and talk about my own mod for this. I made a mod for making loading these atlases much easier. So if you put your hands on a mod called Custom Sprite Loader, Custom Sprite Loader creates a folder inside of mod config. Custom Sprite Loader has a readme if you're interested. Sprites you place here are loaded, end of story. And then we're gonna be placing something here to be loaded for us. Instead of going all the way in the game files and placing something and having it be loaded by code, I'll just toss it here for now. Okay, well, this doesn't look like a sprite sheet just yet. Maybe it does. Let's turn off Slugcat. And let me do some real quick adjustments here. So gun and turret. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a sprite sheet by hand. What a sane person would do would be to export these as separate images. And then use the packer. Do I have the packer installed? Packer. Sprite. Atlas. Nope, I don't have the packer installed, so I have to do it by hand. I don't feel like installing that piece of shit software. It's gonna be easy, I promise. We just need to note down some numbers. Okay, let me place Scug for reference in a place where we're not gonna lose it when I trim these layers. It's right there, it's safe. I'm gonna trim this file to be just that. It's all we need. We need a pixel around everything. And that's it. Now I can export this image. Save it probably, so let's save it. Not in Wilderness. Wilderness is a separate project. Not in Regions, maybe in Rainward. Let's just toss it here for now. So this is gonna be turret gun. And then I'm gonna export the PNG. Control-Shift-E, I pressed that. PNG. Yes. And now we have our image. Now, let's fill the gaps here. So I know what an atlas is. Maybe you guys don't. What is an atlas? Remote modded assets, futile. My answer for everything is look at what the game does, understand it, do the same. So what is an atlas from the game's perspective? Let's find out what the game has for atlases. Just a sprite sheet? Yeah, it is just a sprite sheet. Let's take an easy one maybe. Water sprites. It's a sprite sheet with 3 sprites in it. Look at it. 3 sprites in it. And water sprites.png, water sprites.txt. I hate the song. Let me skip. There we go. So there is a txt file here. This txt file has a bunch of JSON stuff in it. If you don't know what JSON is, it's a format for files to have like data structured in it. 90-degree splash. So it's probably one of these. Rain splash, tall splash. Let's try and guess which one of these is tall splash. I think it's the left one. What's the information it has? It has a frame on our X, Y, width and height. It's not rotated, it's not trimmed. It has a sprite source size, which is its width and height, and it has a source size. Width and height. Okay. If we look at the picture, something that is wide 48 and tall 232. It's the tallest one, right? It's probably this one. So those numbers are just the coordinates of the sprite on the image, and each entry of this is a different sprite. We want something like this for us, so let me copy this and paste this. And instead we want gun turret .png, doesn't matter, and gun mount. I lost chat for a second there. Yeah, probably right. Don't need the third sprite, so we don't need this guy. So gun turret and gun mount, and then metadata is completely ignored if I recall correctly, so it literally doesn't matter. Let's have a look at our sprite. We have the gun turret on 00, and it is 53 by 35. So gun turret is 00 53 35. Not rotated, not anything. It starts at 00. It is wide 53 and it's tall 35. Right. Are the bullets going to be raycast? No, I think I'm just going to have like a real fast projectile, because the game has ray tracing collision, so I can afford it to be a projectile and ray trace every frame. And it also gives you a chance to dodge if you're really quick about it. Okay, next object starts at 35. On Y, X is still 0, so X is 0. Y is 35. It is 53 wide. Is it though? Is it though? It is not. It only has to be 46 wide. 46 wide. And then how tall is it? It's 35 to 64, so that's 29. 29. I think this is the frame, and then width and height we just copy over. Probably want to have this be on source file. also goes here. That is our sprite sheet. So this is, if I go to Rainward, this is gun. Where did I save this thing? Turret gun, sorry. Turret gun dot txt. Now we go there where we were going to place these guys. We get our things that we saved somewhere. Turret gun, PNG, and TXT. We copied there. Stuff that isn't here is automatically loaded. I'm just gonna go ahead and launch my game, see if it's working. And I'll see if it's working by looking at the logs. Probably have to reload it, yeah. I want to see console log and exception log. Console log is gonna say custom sprite loader. Loading Atlas turret gun. So there we go. We have turret gun somewhere in there. It's been loaded. It's available for mod usage. Found slicer data. Yeah, so alright, so we have our thing there. Why is it kept floating? Oh, I have the 0G mod on, I think. Let me try and place it real quick with something that I know takes a sprite. Objects. I think it's something in region kit takes a sprite. Simple cog. What? Doesn't take a sprite? Might be something machinery. Gun turret. And then we have to place a piston. Sample piston. Piston goes in there. Shader is colored object 2. Is that right? I don't remember honestly. Look at the game. What the game does do the same. So shelter doors use colored sprite 2. Colored sprite 2. Colored sprite 2. RGB, piston, container, everything's probably fine. This might have to be actually foreground or background or even higher. Save, hide, reload. We have our gun there. It's vibrating because it's using like an object that vibrates to place in the game. But it's there. Any particular reason for the gun being blue? I'll go back to it in a second. It's bouncing because I picked something that bounces for the object I'm using. It's something from the region kit machinery. Because I don't have a really simple way of loading this on screen just yet. I can have this be amplitude 0. And I can have this be bigger. Nah, let's keep it like this. Let me look at it closer. So how do you get closer in this game? Camera zoom. Camera zoom. It looks more or less like this. It's kind of meh, but let's have it like that. All right. This gun is blue because we're using a shader that turns blue into a palette tone and red into depth. So we're painting the corners of this thing a little red, and we're painting the details using the 3 tones of blue that become the 3 tones of the palette. And then we're picking the right shader that does the trick for us. This is the same way that the shelter doors in the game are done. So this is the shelter door parts. They're blue, but in game they become palette colored. I think we have the graphics sorted out. We drew them, they're in game. We can look at what else there is to do. Don't save this. Tab here. Windows, anything else they have? Well, this was the painter algorithm, no, I need to explain that anymore. What is in blue are the parts that have to become the same color as the level. You're gonna figure out that it's just the region gate and the shelter gate, shelter door. The rest is white and is colored dynamically, but the stuff that has to mimic the level palette is done in blue and uses a special shader to match the palette. And we're doing the same here, because we're cool. Alright. Graphics done. We get the graphics in game, we can use them. Now we get into the code part of this. Let me go back to my to-do list here. So the graphics. We did it, we used the right shader, we imported the sprites into the game, we quickly tested having them on screen and it works alright. We're gonna look into bullet scan lines and sparks much later probably. Let's actually go ahead and place them. So we need the turrets to appear when the room is loaded. And the place that I specify, I want to be able to place, to pick a place on the level and have the turret spawn there. There is a bit of a framework for this in the game. It's called the placed objects. So if I go to the game code, I'll quickly browse through this. And I go and look for something that is a placed object. There we go. Placed objects carry a type and some data. When you start them, they start with an empty data or maybe the data you provided. And they can be serialized to string and can they be read from string. So that's the way you save something to a level, it's serialized as a string. Now here you see that there's a freaking ton of types of placed objects, and we're going to create a new one. And yeah, there'll be one more here at the end of the list for us, that is our own type. Quickly zooming through this, we see that there is a placed object, there's, oh my goodness, I'm losing my voice, hold up. Okay, voice is back. Voice appears to be back for now. Better? Better. Okay. There are placed objects, there's placed object data. There's a lot of types of placed objects, so there's the placed object type, which is an enumeration, and the data, if you scroll down here, is our specialized types of object data. And there's for groups of insects, there is for light fixtures, etc, etc, etc. We know this exists. The next step is know how the game uses it. So always do this, always do this. Always select something that you know exists and you want to investigate further, and you analyze this method in the NSPy analyze mode it's gonna tell you that this is used by DevTools interface create object or ROM setting load placed objects. ROM setting load placed objects. Load placed objects is how the game actually uses this at runtime when it's running, not when you're programming it. Placed object known, and then from string on that placed object. So from string is going to parse, figure out which type it is from the string, its position, and then it's going to generate its data, or maybe read its data from the string. Okay, we know that much. What else can we learn from this? And those guys, once they're read, they are placed in an array of placed objects. How is this used? We know it's being used here, it's being deactivatable. It's being activated or deactivated because the game can filter stuff that appears to each difficulty that you play as. I could explain it better, I won't. Placed objects is read by a bunch of stuff. I imagine some of these are like, oh, the centipedes are gonna check if there is a centipede attractor in the room, and that's how that object works. It's just like a marking that something exists there. But I'm interested in how the room loads the stuff that it's loading. So there's room loaded here. I'll just jump straight to the middle of it. When the room loads, for each placed object, if that object is active, it does like a big freaking switch. Oh yeah, the AI goes in pretty fine detail for some creatures. It's always amazing. It's a lot of love that went into making this video game. Room loaded. For each room object in room settings, if that object is active, a big switch case, and if it matches the case of that type of object, it spawns it. Reliable ig direction, token stalk, rainbows, light beams, you name it, it's here. Most likely. Right, so we need something of our own to be in here too. So we've seen that there is placed object with the type, the data, and then there is room loaded with the actual implementation. Right. Do we do this in the simpler way just yet? I think we do it the simple way. What are these guys creating in the room, by the way? So let's lower the music because it's way too loud. So these guys are creating whatever these are. It's creating always. You're gonna see this always. It's always an updatable and deletable or something more specialized than that. Updatables and undeletables are the basic room object. It doesn't need to be a physical object. Updatable and deletable is the most basic type. It can be updated and it can be deleted. Some stuff you can even draw. If it is an eye drawable, those guys interact with the room camera. They show up. They're not just purely a mechanical, logical thing. They have sprites. We want that. I will start by creating a new project in my thing here. So somewhere in here, could reuse one of these projects and just shove something in there. But I will create my 51st project. So let's go. Add new project. Project number 51. Nobody gets to pick a name. This is Gun Turret. Gun Turret mod. Gun Turret. Just quickly rename the file. Toss in all the dependencies. All of them. And what is our mod going to do? Let me just copy paste the boilerplate code from either the wiki or from a different mod of mine. Wiki, where did you go? Back in plugin. npmas gun turret using Bepinex. I should probably set the template up at this point, but it doesn't bother me too much to do this every time. Our mod is a Bepin plugin and has an onEnable method. Right, that's it. We have a mod. Our mod is recognizable by the game and can be loaded. We want some more things though. So we want, let me write that down somewhere, or maybe our to-do block. So we know that for this to happen, we need a placed object. A placed object needs an enum, needs data question mark, needs room loaded, be created, create updatable and deletable. Right. Let's get started. So I'm gonna be using enumExtend for this. It's a mod that makes it super duper easy to extend enums. I just need to remember somewhere where I actually used that. Definitely in CG or some of the camera effects. How you use an enumExtender, you simply create something that has a certain format for an inner class. So this is a public static class that starts with enumExtend and ends with forever. And then enums that you're creating here are dealt with through reflection. And we want this enum to be of type placedObject.type. And it's gonna be gun turret type. Right, so now there's going to be an enum added to placed object that is called gun turret, and we have control over it. Enum part is done. What's next? So do we need data? All placed objects have a position to them. I'll skip having data just to make this simpler. So basically, we just gonna need to load it when the room is loaded and create an updatable and deletable. So on room loaded, right? Here you'd place your hook code. If we were doing this from scratch, so let's first off run the original method. Original on self, let the room run. Now here's a catch. Sometimes self.game will be null. That happens if the room is baking. If the room is being baked, it's not in-game, it's being prepared for the game, and that's a different situation. So we want to check if self.game is null, we don't do anything, we just return immediately. Else, the else here is implicit, because it wouldn't be reached if it didn't return. Else for each doesn't matter too much, for each POBG in self.roomSettings.placedObjects, if placed object is active and placedObject.type is or enumExtend gun turret type. So if there is an object in this room, how does the game do objects off screen? I'll get to that. It's not too complicated to explain, but it will be a pretty big tangent right now. If you didn't do so, something you can do later is watch my video that is on... Oh dang it, it's no longer on Twitch, it's probably just on YouTube and I haven't made it public. But I've made a video explaining explaining the code base for this game. And I go through the word, the abstract space, the realized space in the room camera, and I draw balls and sprites, and how that mostly interacts. So do remember to ask me for that later, please. Okay, we're going when the room is loaded. If we find an object that is our type of object and is active, and it is in this room that is being loaded, of course, we want to instantiate it. Things that go into the room are updatables and deletables. Just for the sake of doing it over and over, let's go back in here and see how the game handles it. So if it is something that the game knows, the game adds object new whatever into the room. So except that this here is self, because we're in a hook. Self. Oh, it sort of expects the indexed version, so let's not do that, and let's just have POBG there. Right. We're not adding a star matrix though, we're adding a gun turret, and now I regret calling this gun turret. I want to call this gun turret mod. Because I want my thing to be called a gun turret, the actual thing in game. And that thing in game is going to be a class called gun turret that inherits updatable and deletable, so it can be added to the room. It's the most basic type of object that goes into the room. I also want it to be an iDrawable because it gotta appear, gotta show up. It's complaining that there's no constructor. Sure, let's make one. Yeah. So right now we're storing this with a placed object. And now how the hell do we handle this? How do we handle being drawn on screen? Because for now that's all I want my gun to do. I want my gun to exist. I want my gun to what's needed to do this again? I want my gun to appear when the room is loaded. Emphasis on appear. If I do this right here, right the way it is, just when the room is loaded, check if one of those guys is a gun turret, and then create this. It's gonna be created, but it's gonna do absolutely nothing. Let's do that. Let's actually do that. So just debug, actually Unity engine, Unity engine.debug.log. My hands are slightly offside on my keyboard and I'm typing everything wrong. Gun turret created. And then a big line so I can spot this easily. Right, so if we save and build and run this mod, I assume it's not gonna do anything because it won't find in the room this placed object until we create it, so we've gotta create it first. We'll get there. I'm just gonna go over one of these open instances of Explorer, get this guy. I don't need these guys all being copied over every time, so I'm gonna go to the dependencies and make them so that they're not copy local. I wish there was a way to make this a default, there isn't. Yeah, from here I want gun turret DOL to be linked to my ringworld modded BepInEx plugin folder. I'll drop it as a symlink. Yep. And then we play the game. And then we're gonna watch the logs real close. Oh, this is gonna be a lengthy tutorial. I already apologize for anybody putting through it to watch it. Right, that thing shaking there is too damn funny. Let me get rid of it. Alright. It's complaining that something went missing. Maybe a placed waterfall went missing, I think so. Yeah, I had placed waterfalls in this room, I think. And I must have got rid of whatever mod was providing them. So we are in the objects tab here. We just added something somewhere in here. Where is gun turret? Gun turret is right here. A gun turret is something that exists in the room. So this is not the object just yet. This is the placed object representation. The default one is just a dot. You can have the fancy ones with all the options. We won't do that just yet. We're just gonna pick a place and place the gun. And save that and reload the room. Have the room be loaded again. We did reload the room. And now, I should have shown this earlier, but there is gonna be here. Gun turret created, right at the end. And it's gonna be the only one, it wasn't created before. It's only created here now that we reloaded the room. Right, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't show up, it doesn't do anything. Let's change that. Let's have it so... Yeah, you have to reload the room. Yeah. Let's have it so that our gun turret is an iDrawable. And for that, we're gonna need to implement an interface. Add to container, apply palette, and draw sprites and initiate sprites. The most important two are always gonna be initiate sprites and draw sprites. For stuff that cannot be interacted with, add to containers almost irrelevant. Apply palette might be could be important too if it's something that's going to change color at some point, especially like when the rain's approaching or something. Apply palette is going to be called all the time, so you can adapt to the rain color. It's complicated. How much do we care about this? The gun is not going to be interactable for now because that will be a much bigger scope. I might make it so in the future. For now, apply palette, it's relevant to us. Add to container. I'm just gonna do... So you guys remember from a different time when I explained this, that the room camera has containers, it has layers. You can inspect the order those are... you can inspect the order those exist by looking at the room camera code and figuring out that the sprite layers are added in this order. So all the way back, so shadows, background, midground, item, foreground, shortcuts, water, grab shader, blur, bloom, HUD. Cameras out of order? It's not gonna be, unless you put it on order. But yeah. Typically stuff happens in midground and items, so it would make sense to place art stuff in midground or items. And it's probably gonna be fine to do so. But since our shader is a depth-aware shader, it might make sense to put it in foreground instead. It probably doesn't matter too much. When in doubt, just look at what the game does and do the same, right? So let's have a look at where we had our shelter doors. Shelter doors is going to add itself to the container items. It's probably fine to do so. You know what? Bang. Don't tell anyone, I'm copy pasting the game code. It's just that I need to do something that is exactly the same as this, so it doesn't matter. Adding our own sprites to a default container. Apply apply palette is not gonna do anything, I believe. Let's see what the game does for here. Yeah, it's nothing is needed because it's a dynamic shader. The shader responds to the palette. Now for initiate sprites and draw sprites, well, let's keep doing the same. Let's look at what the game does and do something similar. The game creates an array of sprites. Sure, why not? And then it puts the sprites in there. And then it changes those sprites' properties, and then it applies a shader. And then it adds itself to container. Oh, it's interesting, right? So this is calling add to container, even though add to container is part of the interface. Yes, it's weird. You have to add stuff to the container the first time it's initialized. It's just weird like that. Let me copy code that's not gonna work, but it's gonna be just fine. We'll fix it in a bit. And we want to thinking of what I might need here in just a little. It wouldn't show up at all. It's like allocating a sprite but not putting it on screen. For it to appear on screen, it has to belong to a container that belongs to the stage. Or similarly, like it has to be nested in something that is on stage. And if you don't put it anywhere, it's not on stage, so it doesn't show up. I'm gonna create a sprite array that is 2. I'm gonna have sprite 0 be something and sprite 1 be something else. Sprite 0 can be the gun and sprite 1 can be the mount. And then now we have to remember their names. Turret gun.txt, so it's gun turret and gun mount. Right, so we're initializing a sprite array that takes one sprite of gun turret and one sprite of gun mount. Gun turret, I want it to be attached at a specific point, so it rotates around that point. That point is going to be more or less here. So I guess that's y0 and x half. Or would it be, I think it's coordinated like that, so it's going to be y0 and x 0.5. It might be the other way around. It might be y1, but I'm not sure. I honestly don't remember everything about this. Just looking at the game code real quick here. I also need something like this at the end, add to the whole container. And I said it starts from the bottom. Yeah, it's just imagery and graphics are weird sometimes, because if you look at what the roller is saying here, the roller is saying that 0 is the top left. The 0, 0 pixel is the top left pixel. But in other stuff tries to make something that makes a lot more sense, and is to have y0 at the bottom, and it goes up, it goes up. That's just weird. It's inconsistent everywhere, especially in Unity and other frameworks like this. Doesn't matter. Okay, we create our sprites. We created a new F sprite, which is the basic type that Futile uses. We set its shader to the shader that we want to use. We don't need to scale. We're not gonna bother rotating it for now. Sprite sheet is bigger than one image. It's bigger than the base, but it's just as large as the one that we need here. And the sprite sheet is being sliced on load. So there is a line, an invisible line here. There's 1 pixel there. There is an invisible line here. Now it's visible. And this is a sprite. And that spot is the 0y of this sprite. And this is another sprite. So it's going to be handled just right. This is the magic floating in Atlas. It knows what are the coordinates within each element. Yeah, so that's why I'm thinking it might be y0 there. Or close to 0, right? It's like y 10%. Doesn't just going to be too much time spent on this already. We created it. We've put some definitions in it. We picked the right shader. We've added it to stage. We're adding it to a container. That is a container that belongs to the camera, and that container that belongs to the camera is already on stage. Now we just gotta draw it, right? So I'ma draw it. I'm thinking of an even easier way to handle this. If I have it so that the gun mount is also has a custom anchor point, then I can just move them both to the same coordinate, and they're gonna be already attached. So slaser dot sprites sprite 0 set position. I want this position to be this dot placed object pfg dot position minus the camera offset, so minus cam position. Why that? Essentially, your object belongs to the geometry, and the camera knows its own offset to the geometry, and it passes that to what's being drawn. So we're drawn ourselves to a certain position on geometry, but how we move to that relative position on screen is by knowing how much the camera is offset. If you think about it and you try using it, it makes sense. Don't worry about it. Don't worry if it doesn't make too much sense right now. It will make sense. Is that everything that we have to do? For now, maybe. We will have a finer look at how to control the shader in just a bit, but not now. Save and build. And now, if we launch Rainward, in that room where we had a gun turret sitting there, it's gonna load something. Or it's gonna crash miserably. Might crash miserably. Da-dum, da-dum. It loaded something. And yeah, I think we picked the wrong attach point. Objects. Interesting. So the camera is attached by the top, so we know how to fix that. On F. But oh shoot, I'm stupid. I probably had it right, but I forgot to change it here to change the other element. So I was editing the top again where I should be editing the bottom. No, I had it right. I just had the numbers wrong here. Not the value numbers, just the index on the array. I'll prove it, or maybe I won't. Let's try it. Save and build. Get to the game. Run it again. There is the Helm mod loader that lets you hot reload mods, but it has so many incompatibilities, and apparently it's just a pain to handle, and I don't like it, so I won't use it. I'm fine with just rebooting the game every now and then. There we go. No, that was it. We have it. there is our gun right there. And because it tracks where our placed object is, we can move it around like so for now. Can he moves like cat? So I can maybe zoom in and look at this closer. Okay, this is a pain to do. There we go. Alright, looks alright. I can change some of these values, so instead of 0, 0.2 and 0.8. That's probably gonna line better, but that's out of the way. So we have our sprites on screen. The basic ones. Now we should probably try and figure out what the hell we want to do for the scan lines. Let's look at our document again, see if there's a clear step-by-step thing that we should do here. So we place them. We picked a base. We're not picking a direction just yet. That's awfully complicated to do, and I'll save it for later if we have the time to do. Now I want to have something that scans for slugcat, or maybe scans for anything. So I want scan lines. Moving up and down at a certain range. So we want those scan lines in. Those scan lines are going to be just graphical and like a mathematical function to test line of sight or whatever. Let's start with just one scan line. And yeah, I think the Vulture Grub or the harpoons from Vulture King might be a really good place to start. Not because you can copy paste it, more like you can look at how it works, figure out what makes it work, and then do the same. That's the logic, the rationale behind it. So we're done with the colored sprite, maybe. Let me have a look at something real quick. This guy is changing the alpha on some of the sprites when it draws them. So when it draws them, it moves, it rotates, but it's also changing the alpha on some of them. And the alpha, we know from the shader code that it maybe does something. Do we have like a recent file? Colored sprite 2. So that is from, it's not going to be on text color, it's going to be the sprite color. It's going to be eye color. Eye color W, so that's the alpha. The alpha controls the depth. And it can be also used for tinting. But the alpha controls the depth. So kind of want that turret not to be a depth 0. I want it to be a depth 5. So we're going to set it to alpha slightly lower than that. Oh, no, it was right there. I want it here. Gun turret mod. So these guys. Oh my goodness, there was so much. Alpha color. Interesting. It's got a bunch of options. I'm not sure what they do. What is the depth? How further away from the camera it is? It's gonna influence how it picks the color from the palettes, and it's gonna influence how it overlaps with other things on screen, whether it draws on top of them or not. But it's mostly the color that I want to change slightly. Alpha equals, so I want this to be at depth 4 out of 30. Can do the math and figure out what number exactly this is. but this works. So just leave it at that. Yeah. The mount is slightly deeper. All right. That was it for this guys. Now we're going to look at the grub. I think there is a grub here in the wrong code. So grub, vulture grub. Vulture grub is a creature. A creature can have a graphics module which is an iDrawable. So the creature having a graphics module active is going to be drawn on screen. We might be looking at how the grub creates its graphic module, because that may be a separate class. So graphics, initiate graphics module, vulture grub graphics. This graphics module is, because it's a graphics module, it's an iDrawable, so there's that. And how it draws, initiate sprite. It has total sprites 7. It has a mesh, it has a layer, it has a it has a mesh, it has a laser sprite, it has a head sprite, it has eye sprite, it has flash sprite. I'm gonna assume the flash is the light. And then it has 2 little flap sprites. We're super duper interested in the laser, I believe. It is hologram behind terrain. I think. Oh, you're new to triangle meshes? Oh, you're probably new to triangle meshes. I think it's just this. It's a square with 2 triangles. Triangle meshes 101. How most ropes in tiny graphics are drawn in video games. Not what I want to do. Control new 1000 by 1000. Right. So when someone says a triangle mesh, they mean way more than one triangle. And it's usually gonna be. Let me pick a suitable color. So triangle into triangle. I'm terrible drawing. Oh. Triangle into triangle into triangle into triangle into triangle into triangle into triangle, etc. This way you get a line that you can distort. If you need to distort something, that's one way to do it, really. Or you can think squares, and then you do a square into square into square into square, and then you use the property that graphics engines really like triangles, and squares can always become 2 triangles, and you do this. And that way you also do a triangle mesh out of squares for getting a thin line. Stuff in the game works mostly like this, and you can have a pointy end at the end, like an extra triangle just for the pointy end. What I think the grub is that its body is this thing, just a triangle mesh out of squares, and then it has the flaps at the top, which are just tiny sprites. And then it has a glow sprite, which turns on and off as it's glowing, and then it has a laser sprite. And that laser sprite, from what I'm seeing, it is a custom F sprite, which I know is just a rectangle. That laser is just a square made out of. It's gonna be internally made out of 2 triangles, but we just care about the fact that we can control each vertex independently. And then you just move those guys all the way up, right? And those guys all the way to where the grub is. And that way you get a thin line. Right, enough drawing, rendering engine, whatever shenanigans. I'm really just interested in which shader it uses and how it uses it. There's gonna be something here. Oh, the clouds shader are a mess. They're really complicated to understand. Honestly, we just need that. We'll copy paste that. Now we need more sprites in our sprites array. Sprite 2 allocated. It's an hologram behind terrain. And now we need to start to think how we're gonna draw it and move it around. So that's a movable part, right? It's gonna move around slightly. Yeah. Let me have a look again at how it's drawn in this code and see if there's something I can easily reuse. Also, this laser sprite probably has to go into foreground. So that's in here. Some shaders, some special shaders need to be drawn after the level, definitely. And this might be one of them, so... Is laser going to be moving up and down or rotate? It's gonna rotate around its bases, around its origin. We'll figure that out in just a bit. Let's just have a look at how this guy moves. Laser active, time stacker, number becomes alpha. What else do you do? Vertex color, so you can color each vertex individually, and you can move each vertex individually, 0 to 3. And I guess it's always gonna start at the corner plus like a perpendicular offset, then offset by the camera. Yeah. So on draw sprites, I want to have var laser equals slaser.sprites to s custom sprite. And now we do stuff on the laser. Mostly moving it to where it has to be. There's gotta be a notion of the direction that it's pointing at. So let's have that be just temporary variable here. Vector to laser direction equals new vector to off. I want it to be facing left. It's just as simple. So -1 float, 0 float. Laser is facing left. And then now we move laser dot move vertex. Move vertex. 0 to somewhere, and then 1 to somewhere, etc., 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 ad nauseum. 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, how do I want these guys to move? I kind of need to think of where the laser starts relative to the camera. So let's have the laser anchor somewhere too. Vector 2 laser anchor. I'm hard encoding these guys here for now, but they might become something that we do processing on. I guess, or it's gonna be easier to do this from the drawing. So if you look at this, you can consider this to be 0, 0 here. And if that's 0, 0 there, I want the laser to start at 10 high, 26 left. It's just as simple. This guy's 53 wide. Half of 53 minus 4. So that's 49. 49 half, that's 24. So it's gonna be minus 24, 10. Minus 24, 10. Right, so we move everything to laser anchor, at least the first ones. Or guess everything. Everything moves to laser anchor. Now I want these guys to be split apart, so one has to go to the left and the other has to go to the right. Or I guess one has to go under, the other has to go over, so that it has some thickness to it. Don't worry about it just yet. We're not making the gun face right. It's gonna work with some kinks, but can I get easy perpendicular of this? No. So if I recall correctly, rw custom dot perpendicular vector. Which is just like boilerplate code, really. I want this for lays direction. And I want this to be stored as vector 2. Perpendicular equals that. Again, I want this guy plus perpendicular minus perpendicular plus. So top 2 lines are the base of the laser, the other 2 are the tips. So I want this guy to move 1000 pixels. Or maybe laser len times laser dir plus perp. And then the other one is the same except it's minus perp. And now everything has to offset by camera position too, so it accounts for the camera. Laser length is just going to be a constant for now. Float laser length equals 1000. Let's do it 500 so we can see something that isn't too long. Save, build, iterate. Oh, gun isn't there. Where's gun? Gun must have failed to initialize. Let's see what happened. Exception log. Argument arranged somewhere. No, nothing. Oh, actually, I think I know this bug. No. Weird. Gun turret created. Just once. Now that's really just really weird. Let me think about it real quick. Now we're probably fine. Save and build again. Let me try and run again. Objects. It's just not there. And it's only being loaded the second time around, which is super weird. Yeah, this is extremely strange. I agree. I wonder if custom regions is messing up with my object somehow. The fact that it was working before is just too weird. Now it's really just really, really weird. Let me have a look if custom regions isn't interfering. Error, error, error. Nope, I don't know what's up with that. And the fact that there's no exceptions being logged, it's super annoying. Super annoying. So when that happens, what something you can do is a bunch of steps. So step 1, we know it's there. Step 2, we know it's here. Step 3, step 4, step 5. So we know when it stopped running. I'm really weirded out by the fact it's not spitting errors. There must be a mod catching those errors when you shouldn't be catching those errors. Right? Console log, tell me everything that happened. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5 happened. This code run. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 happened. So stuff. Why did I change here again in the add to container? I remember copy and paste stuff in here. I'll redo that in a second. Of that. New container add child as lizard sprites. And then became new container add child as lizard sprites. So now that's probably fine. A, B, C. Save and build. Can spawn a buffalo there. I'm really intrigued. Normally it isn't that cursed. Normally the game isn't this cursed, I promise. Oh, I think I remember something. I remember changing the depth that those sprites are at. Yeah, so these are being drawn ABC. I can probably stop this before it fills my disk up. It's just that I also changed the depth they draw at, and I didn't really test that. And now that I think about it, I'm stupid. So I don't want them to be a depth 4 or 30. Because 0 is all the way back. I want this to be at 1 minus 4 or 30. So basically I sent these guys into the clouds. And that's why they weren't showing up. They were in the clouds. So just that stuff like that is complicated to debug. Yeah, it tends to happen if you're rushing it, if you're doing many changes at a time without testing, like I was. Like I changed those and I didn't test the values to see if they worked individually, and then it might have been something else, but we just don't know. Right, so we have the camera back here, but our laser isn't showing up at all. Why isn't our laser showing up at all? Could it be because of some of the effects that I have? If I remove this effect, removing effect is more complicated than it should be. Glowing fog, TW clouds 2, remove, save, hide. Nope. Still no laser. I re-added the laser code. It's there. It's white with a shader. And the way we're moving it is like this. Oh, we're forgetting something important. We're forgetting this. We're forgetting to offset it to our own position on the screen. So we're drawing that guy as 0, 0 coordinates. Sorry, I forgot. There's our laser. It is pretty cool. I think I didn't offset tips properly, or did I? It's weird that it has... like it thins out. I don't really get it. But it's there. Alright, let me take some measurements here. Control-Alt-Right for my roller. This guy needs to come down by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pixels. Or maybe I could move the gun up a little, because the way the gun is moving with the base. Oh, I think the base is on top of the gun actually. So I have to reorder those. Huh. Right, I'm first adding the gun and then I'm adding the mount. It's kinda wrong. Okay, now the mount comes first into the array. And when we draw it, we can offset it just fine. And then those numbers should be 85 and 15. So this thing goes up a little. And then this guy could be on 11. Maybe a 12, maybe a 12. Save and build. No, wait, it has come down. So it should be an 8. Save and build. How thick I want it to be. Now here's the weird part. I think I'm doing it right. Oh, I might need to flip the signs. There. So that should fix everything. That should fix everything. It's been half an hour just to get stuff on screen. It's a pain in the butt. It always is. That looks much better. Could still move like a pixel down. And can move a pixel to the more left. And I won't bother having it be... Alright. Alright, yeah, it's getting pretty late. It's fine. Oh, it's getting late for myself too. It's probably fine. Laser stuff. I'll reduce the scope even further. I won't have these guys go up and down, I'll just have it be a straight line. And then I'll move this code elsewhere, maybe. Nah, I'll leave it here. What would be next? Let's look at our document. We had stuff more or less in order. Want the scan lines moving up and down? We want to collide with the scan lines. Maybe test for line of sight. Sure, let's see how the game does it. So we're taking for reference the future grubs. And the way the vulture grub does it is by using shared physics ray trace tiles for terrain return first solid. Wow, that's really convenient. Really cool. Just gotta understand a little better what this is. Custom rectangle collision. From its own position. Chunk, worm, chunk. Okay, so it's from its head. Collides from that towards vector 5, which is the head direction. Negative times infinite. Collides from that position. What? Okay, never mind. It collides from head to head direction infinite. Collides with a rectangle that is room camera. Room rectangle grown by 200 float in all directions. Yeah. What? Oh, this is a property, so it returns a new rectangle every time. Got it. Get corner. What? So it does a collision. Interesting. I don't know. Honestly, don't know. This rectangle collision. Position, last position, rectangle. Lower left, upper right. What the hell is this? It has like encoded data on the upper right. Upper right's always gonna be 0, 0, 1, 0, minus 1. What? And then distance. Lower left. What the hell is distance for? This is really weird. Rectangle collision. Ringward custom. Let me take a peek of something real quick. Game. Where did it go? No, really, I lost it. Here. I want MISC. Ringward custom. And what's the name of the thing that we're looking at? Where's GenSpy? I was looking at rectangle collision. Nope, no comments in the code. Yeah. Left hit, right hit, bottom hit, top hit. Oh, just have it here, I guess. Left hit, right hit, bottom hit, top hit. Hit direction. Interesting. So it returns something with like a hit direction and a hit point as a float rectangle. Why? So we care about, we're looking at it from here. Here. So this rectangle collision, get corner, label corner D. What? Float rectangle. What? Oh, it's a custom float rectangle. What the hell? Get corner D means get the left bottom corner, so lower left. So we're just getting the hit point from that collision. Alright, alright. Everything this cursed line of code here is doing is colliding this vector with the room rectangle and getting the hit point, getting the collision point. It didn't have to be this complicated, but it is. Oh, I forgot I don't have a ring palette. Because I don't have a ring palette, it just goes into white. That was amazing. Alright. Can we do better than this? Can we do better than this? I think we can. So I know there is RX extensions, RX rectangle, RX math, RX utils. For rectangles. Might even have collision. Hello, Saul. Welcome, welcome. No extensions here. What am I doing today? I'm doing code stuff. I'm making a turret gun, or gun turret for Ringward. More ways to kill Slugcat. Let's not look at this for too long. Gun turret mod. All right. Let's have it be in the update code where it checks for slugcat, right? Shall we? Override update. So this is being called for us whenever this update upon deletable is updated. If this dot room is null, return. In case we have left the room while we're updated, I don't know, probably doesn't matter for a known creature. This is important with creatures because creatures can leave the room, but most other objects can't. Right. We want to, I actually want to copy these guys. And make them fields and update them every frame. Which ones need updating? I don't care about this. So this one can go in draw sprites. Gotta go now. All right, bye. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for passing by. It's mostly just laser encoder. I want to update every frame. For now. Okay, so we want to detect a collision with other things in the room. We saw that VirtualGraph does shared physics ray trace stuff. For tiles, there's a GA in the comments here. Amazing. Ray trace tile for terrain. Kinda want to ray trace for creatures. Is there anything like this in this code? Trace projectile against body chunks. Terrain collision time. What? Oh, interesting. It's a bunch of this for terrain, horizontal collision, exact terrain, connect chunks, static, void, connect chunks. Interesting, so it's probably for chunk movement. Collision result, trace, terrain collision. Huh. But I'm really interested in trace projectile against body chunks. I need to know what an eye projectile tracer is. I also kind of want to see where this is used in general to have an idea of what its usage is like. See how the game uses it, do the same. Big needleworm swish, bullet drip strike. Bullet drip strike. All those bullets aren't just cosmetic? That's amazing. You can pass no for the projectile tracer. Interesting. What the hell? Is there stuff that implements this? Implemented by... Oh, the mama noodle cannot hit the baby noodles. It's just like a filter. hit this object, not this vulture, and others creature. King Tusks cannot hit objects, so you can't parry those, I suppose. Funny. I guess they can't miss into an object, I guess. Hit this object for a weapon. Not player or not his peer from by blah, 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 blah. Funny. Yeah, okay, so this is like for implementing a filter, if I'd like to do so. But we know that we don't have to pass something that influences the filter. All right. Let me do something very similar here. What? You need to create this guy from... I guess I can just not do that. Laser anchor plus direction times length. And this is the hit position that we care about here. Radius is 1, collision layer is 1. And then its origin position would be laser anchor. If collision result dot hit something, this dot hit something equals true. Let's have it be just like a placebo effect for now. Let's just have it change the color of the sprite when it's drawn. Laser dot color. Now this is a special type of sprite. I don't remember if it likes being colored. Move Verdis colors. Laser color equals 1, 0, 0, but only if hit something. Save and build. Validate that it works. We're trying to scan in the scan line. So we're doing like a physics scan in the same positions with our scan line draws. And if we hit something, we change the color of the scan line. Right? And we can test that with DevTools in SlugCat. That didn't work. Should probably have printed something in the logs because I don't know if my color's messed up or if it didn't detect anything. Let's see if there's something in the errors. Nothing in the errors, so it's probably good. For laser dot, nope, just laser dot color vertex colors dot length laser vertex colors I equal color. The 30 seconds of doom every time. Right, we have a white line. And now we can move SlugCat into there and it might turn red. Aha! SlugCat has been detected. And it doesn't do much just yet, but hey, that's pretty good. It's actually pretty cool. What would be the next logical step? And the next logical step for me is to go to sleep. It's 11 PM and I have to get up super early, so I might cut it here. We did a lot of stuff today. We loaded an object in the room and we made graphics for it, and we made it so that the graphics appear on screen, and we started programming a room object. Started messing around with the physics of the game. Yeah, it was a good day. I think that's gonna be it for this tutorial. We didn't do everything that we planned to, but honestly, if you go through this points one at a time, individually, they're relatively easy. It's just a lot of work on its whole. So we got halfway through what we set out to do, and we did it so in 2.5 hours. So that was pretty good. Happy with that. I might leave it here. I'll export this and put it on YouTube later for archival purposes. And thank you all for watching this tutorial. Have a great one, everyone. Empima signing off.